Hey folks, and welcome to theymightberacing.com. Today we are working on the wife's car. She's been driving around and recently she started to complain about the air conditioning system. Well, reality being what it is, it wasn't actually a problem with the air conditioning system. It had to do with the blower motor. So when you're looking at or talking about your air conditioning system, you're really talking about two completely separate components. There is the AC system, which is where all the freon and everything is, and that's what's used to cool down the air that's being blown around about your car. And the other half of the system is the environmental controls, things like the fans and such, that control how the air moves around in the cabin, whether you're applying heat or cold, that sort of thing. And in the Ford Explorer, this is a 2002 Ford Explorer, this is a frequent occurrence, is that eventually you'll hop into the car one day and you'll go to kick on the AC, and there's 4 notches, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you turn it to 1 and you get nothing, you turn it to 2, you get nothing, you turn it to 3, you get nothing, you turn it to 4, you get a huge blast of maximum air. Now the thing to think about when you start looking at or diagnosing how the air is blowing in your car is, number 1, is the air moving, and number 2, the air that is or is not moving, is it hot or cold, particularly when running your air conditioning system. So in this car, it wasn't really blowing very well, however it was blowing very cold. So we know that the AC part of the system is good. It's really about the blower motor, the switches, and what's wrong with that particular system. Now, in a lot of cars, you'll either lose a relay, or the fan switch will go bad, or in some very rare cases the fan motor itself will go bad. The easy way to detect these things is if you put power on the fan spins, then obviously the fan's okay. So then you start to look at the switches and such. Now, modern cars being as complex as they are, these things always tend to have one fiddly bit in the system that doesn't last as long as the rest of it. So I initially started looking at the switch tested out okay. Turns out there is a blower motor resistor that goes in the Ford Explorer. It's used in a number of different Ford vehicles. So this little guy here controls the multiple speeds on the fan. And in this particular Ford Explorer, we have the single system, so it has one blower motor resistor for up front. There are some Ford Explorers that have a separate system in the back, so you actually have 2 of these. You'll know if you have it in the back because you actually have AC controls and such back there. Now, this is a relatively inexpensive part. It's easy to fix yourself. There are 2 8mm bolts that hold it in place. It actually goes up underneath the glove compartment. There's a little bit of wiring that you have to remove. There's a big harness that clips onto the end of this. And in addition to that, the way that they've run the wiring underneath the car, it's easiest to get this out if you remove some of the harness, or at least I should say detach some of the harness. So I'll give you a bird's eye view of what I'm looking at and explain to you what needs to be done to replace this. So here you can see the underside of the dash. Again, we're on the passenger floorboard, and all of your heating system wiring and such is right up in here. Now, in particular, what we're looking at today, as I said, the blower motor resistor. This particular wide connector right here is the wiring going into the resistor. It's got a little push pin on the bottom. You pull that off. You can see it's a fairly heavy-duty connector right there. In addition, further up in here, this harness actually clicks to the side of the support there. I removed that because that's the easiest way to get the upper bolt. Now, here is the blower motor resistor. In the back corner of that is one of the bolts. It's an 8mm. And then there's a lower one down here, which is your second 8mm. So, in terms of replace this, you disconnect the wiring, you remove the 2 bolts, pull the old one out, put the new one in, replace the 2 bolts, and reconnect the wiring. And if you've done everything correctly, you should have all 4 of your fan speeds again when you're done. So now that you've got your blower motor resistor replaced, you've reconnected the wiring, you hook that other piece of wiring harness back up to the support, start your car, hop in, and you should feel a faint freeze at 1. When you kick it up to 2, feel it about double that, 3 stronger, 4 should be full on. And I don't know if the sound quality is good enough for you to actually pick up the differences in the wind speed. But at this point in time, we now have the correct velocity of air coming out of the ducts based on the blower for each setting. So for the space of about 20 minutes to half an hour, depending on how flexible you are, because it's kind of tight underneath there, you can fix this yourself for somewhere in the range of $30. The one thing to keep in mind is anytime you're dealing with wiring, you should always disconnect the negative cable on your battery. There's also an airbag here, so you want to be cautious about wanging and popping things in and around there. You don't want to set it off. But overall, it's a fairly straightforward swap. Very easy fix. It happens quite frequently on these cars, so if it happens to you, you'll now know how to fix it.